Hello, my name is Hoda Afshar and I'm an artist and an educator. I'm here in Lincoln to present my work, Remain, at Mansions of the Future. The project that I made focuses on the refugee detention camp Manus in Papua New Guinea, Australian refugee detention camp, that started in 2013. It's made in collaboration with Behruz Buchani, which is an Iranian Kurdish journalist and writer and refugee who's been detained since 2013 too. The major themes that the work addresses are death and statelessness and the trauma that the men on Manus has endured throughout the years of being detained there basically indefinitely, and it looks at the sense of desperation, narratives of fear, death of a friend, and also loss of hope in an island that is very close to paradise, and the juxtaposition of the trauma against the beauty of this island is one of the major components of the work. Basically what we decided to do was to not do whatever has been done before, because both Behruz and I are quite critical of documentary image making, the traditional ways of image making, as like somehow, because we both come from a documentary background, and he's a journalist, I used to be a documentary photographer, and it's somehow we both feel like the world has become somehow immune to the images of suffering, and it's like people don't feel anything anymore. And the way that refugees are always represented through the media are sort of as this mass group of people that all they seek is basically safety and nothing else. And they don't have any desires beyond that. While the people that I worked with, they're quite passionate about life. They're really talented, and they all have individuals and stories that somehow makes them sort of like different from one another. So that was the main goal for us, to capture that in the work. And so for that, the main element that I used in creating Remain was to use performance. It's like real people, real bodies, a real space, but they're presenting these stories and narratives through more of a poetic, symbolic approach. And so that was a kind of a method that I used to give autonomy back to the subject matter somehow. The work is dedicated to 12 men who lost their lives on Manus and Nauru since 2013 due to medical negligence, murder by the guards, and suicide. In 2018, I traveled to Manus Island, basically by applying for a tourist visa, because if I wanted to apply for a work visa as an artist or a photographer, my application would have definitely been rejected. And I got in contact with Omid Tofirian, the translator of Behruz Buchani's book, and he put me in contact with Behruz, and we spoke for nearly 4 or 5 months through exchanging WhatsApp voice messages to discuss the goals and aims that I had for the work. And he also educated me about the history and the horrors of the detention center. Making work on Manus was quite challenging, because the Australian immigration officers were stalking us basically everywhere, and they were monitoring everything that we were doing. And the work that I made would have not been possible without the help and assistance of Behruz Buchani, and the other men that are in the work. They also put their trust in the work, because we spoke a lot before every session that this work is about the way that they want to represent their stories to the camera, not using the traditional documentary methods that normally there's a kind of a distance between the subject matter and the photographer. It's just like I didn't want to portray them as an identical group of victims, but I wanted to bring out their humanity, something that can actually make people feel these individuals' narratives beyond that sort of like level of sympathy. I wanted people to experience their suffering by being really up close to these individuals. And for me, the most important goal was to make people to feel empathetic towards it more than anything else, because Australian government has tried to portray these people as dangerous criminals, as a threat to the sanctity of the borders of the community, and they made these people completely invisible by placing them in cages for years and years without anyone having access to what's going on inside the camp. So for me, like, looking at broader themes that I address in my work is issues to do with representation, image making, and visibility. And I wanted to use my camera, my art, and the platform that I have to create an opportunity for these people to be seen and their narratives to be heard. Home to me is where one's roots are, basically. And when you migrate or you're exiled, either voluntarily or forced, it's like your roots are placed in a different land and they're being stretched. It's really painful. If you cut the roots, you lose your sense of identity. And but it's, for me, like when you migrate also, is that the roots are placed somewhere else, but as you grow and move forward, you place roots in other places as well. So the individual that you become is a kind of a like a plant, basically, that moves and grows and places roots elsewhere.